there's going to be some assumptions that would be that there's some Selenium framework page object model in existence. Now, of course, there doesn't have to be to start modeling, but to align automation for Selenium, you could have ARD just generate completely standalone Selenium that requires nothing. But that would mean that you're doing things like defining element locators in ARD, which is not really a good practice. So you'd want some kind of framework, some kind of page object model in existence at some point. And so I have a page object model here, and it's for the digital bank application, sample application, and each page basically is represented by a class. And that page object class is going to contain the element locator information. This is just using standard Selenium. So for instance, the savings menu button is being located by its ID of savings-menu. The other thing these page object classes are doing are exposing public functions to actually interact with that page in different ways. And so these page objects are what are going to be used by Selenium scripts themselves. And the reason for doing this is you're kind of abstracting out the definition of things that don't change per test, right? If I have 10 tests that are going to go through opening new accounts, the locators for the elements I'm interacting with in that new account page aren't changing per test. So I want to define them once and then reference them from my tests. That's the whole idea behind page objects. So that has nothing to do with ARD, but page object model is something well documented online. If you're not familiar with it, check it out. That's just a web UI testing best practice. So when I'm modeling a UI, the first thing I do is I create the page object model for the UI I'm going to be modeling. And sometimes this will be done by a different team if you have like a test automation COE, but anyway, I already have the page object model for this web UI, and this is the UI that I'm going to be modeling, where I can log in. It's online banking kind of thing, and I can open up a new account, a new checking account, a new savings account. And if I click new savings, I can choose the different savings account types, money market or regular savings, choose the ownership, enter an account name, enter an initial deposit. So maybe we want to create a model that's going to test new savings. So we'll just do that. Okay, so create a new model here. Call it new savings. Okay, and so I'm first going to just model it, and then we'll worry about test data and automation. So I know that I have to, for my tests to run, they actually do need to log in to Digital Bank each time. So I'll start with that. So I'll say log in. Yes, this involves multiple fields, username and password, clicking submit. I could try logging in with bad credentials, but I don't care about that. Not for this testing. I'm not trying to test login. I'm trying to test creating an account. Logging in is just something I have to do to get to an account creation screen. So I'll put it here, but simply as login. Then I will kind of step forward in this and see what we do here. So then I would open a new savings account. And so I might represent that as open new savings. And I'm kind of describing both the steps that you take to go through this process, but I'm also thinking in terms of, okay, well, here I'm going to put my code snippets for logging in, perhaps, and here I'll put my code snippets for entering or for selecting open new savings from that menu here. So I would have Selenium to expand this, and then Selenium to click this, and now I'm here. Okay, so now I'm presented with a form. So now I'm going to start modeling actual variations where we deviate. It's no longer just going to be process block, process block. So I've got a decision right here, really. The savings account type could be savings or money market. So I'll do multi-output case. So this would be savings type. And my two options would be, say, regular savings, money market. But I could also not choose anything. If you notice, when I first get to this UI, it's not defaulting to anything. So technically, I could try and submit the form without choosing anything. So this is something that a user could do. And yeah, sure, it represents kind of negative testing, but when I'm trying to model, I really think in terms of these micro decisions. So just this part, what could a user do? They could choose this, and they could not choose anything. So that's what I model. And that's what I've got here. This is also a user interaction, so I'll hit finish, put that there. This connects down here. Once they've chosen savings type, then I have ownership, and I have account name and initial deposit. But I shouldn't just be modeling based on the UI. I should have user requirements that I'm modeling towards, right? And so I have a requirement that money market requires a different initial deposit than savings. And so because my selection here is impacting this field, and there is really no difference between me choosing this and then filling in this and then choosing this and this. That order doesn't matter as far as like a test automation perspective. So my next block after this will be this field because this selection impacts the rules that need to be enforced here. Money market's $2,500 minimum, savings is $25 minimum. So my next block is actually going to be initial deposit. And so I would say a couple different ways to do this, but I'll do, let's see, I'll kind of do it this way. So money market initial deposit, I'll say less than 2,500, 2,500 exactly, and greater than 2,500. Okay. And kind of hard to see, so I'll zoom in a little bit. And then I will do a reg initial deposit. And maybe that will be, because that toggle is 25, so I'll do less than 25, 25 exactly, greater than 25. And I'll do a user interaction there. Okay, so we've kind of split off here. So obviously money market goes here, and regular savings goes here. Okay. And now I handle these other two fields. So I've got account ownership. I'll just say ownership is joint, individual, and none selected. Okay. And I will do account name. And let's say that the account name has to be filled in, but it has to be valid. It can't contain special characters. So I'll say account name, be valid, invalid, special characters, or empty. And that's user interaction as well. Okay. And then I'm getting to kind of expected results. So I would say new savings created. This would be an assertion. And then I might have another process block, account not created. I might make that an error, so it's red. Oh, and I do want a maybe click submit, user interaction. Okay, and I might clone that. Okay, so now I can start connecting these up a little bit. So what I want is greater than 25 and 2500 going there. And I'll kind of rewire this a little bit, because both of these are above the minimum, or at the minimum. Let's see this, so then I'll kind of make this consistent here. And this is 25. Okay, so all of these represent different ways to enter valid initial deposits between the different accounts. If I do less than the initial for regular savings, then I'm going to not create the account. It's not enough. And that's where I end up here. And the same for this guy over here. So I can clone this guy again. Just put him over here, and I'll clone this. Because I don't want to cross over my model too much with the edges. So I'll just, I could connect this over here, but that would result in something that looks like this, which is kind of, well, that's actually not terrible, but if I didn't want any line crossings, then I could just do something like this. Kind of move it over here a little bit. All right. And then he comes here. So now we'll continue up with our happy path. Joint is fine. I'm going to give it a little more room here, maybe. So I've got, if I do something like this, joint, and individual, and if none selected here, we will error out. Okay. And then for account name, if it's valid, I continue on. If it's empty, I'm going to error out. And if it's invalid special characters, I also will error out. And I'll do the same thing here. But I'll kind of increase that there so it's separate lines. Okay, great. So now I connect these up and I should be done. So that entire screen, everything I could try to do is modeled besides this guy right here, which, well, let's make him go to the left, why not? So none selected, you go over here. Maybe we'll bring these down like this so that I don't have any overlapping edges. I don't like having edges that start, two edges that start from the same anchor point if possible. So that's what I just changed there. Bring these up a little bit. Okay. Another thing I like to do is if you kind of left click and drag, you can highlight edges like this. And these are kind of going to the error branch, if you will. So I'll change their color to red. And so, yes, they're coming from blue blocks, which makes their default arrow blue, but these represent kind of error paths. So I'll kind of just easily highlight them and change their color for, again, clarity purposes only. There's no functional effect of this, but it now is pretty clear to me. Once I hit a red edge, I'm now in a negative scenario. If I'm on a blue edge all the way to the end, that's a positive scenario. Okay, so looks good. The next thing that I do, and understand the end goal here is automation. I'm walking you through literally end to end how we get there. And we've got one more step, which is test data. Usually you need test data in the model of some form before moving to automation makes sense. Okay, so savings type. I did that kind of quickly, so I'm just going to open this block savings type, and I'm going to say test data, And I'm going to start adding test data to this block. So I'll add a new variable. I'll say maybe count type. And so for regular savings, it would be, I believe, just savings. Well, so now this is where I'm going to look at my POM, because I basically want that to choose. When I go through that edge, I want it to choose this. So have I identified that in my POM? So if I look at new savings account page, I can see it's this guy is my regular savings radio selection. So savings is what I'm looking for here. So I've exposed this function that says, okay, give me the account type. Did you pass to me unselected? Did you pass to me money market? Did you pass to me savings? So I know I need to pass in savings, which is what I'm going to put in my test data layer. That'll make more sense in a second, but for now I'm just going to put savings here. And then for money market, I'll add an existing variable. We just created account type, so I don't need to create it again. And this will be money market. And for none selected, I don't have to actually do this. This is implicit. By not setting it, it'll be set to blank, but I like to just add it here so that it's clear. If you choose none selected, it would be blank. But actually, in this case, my POM is expecting you to pass in this for it to do nothing. So it's just something I did at the POM layer. But so here we'll just put none selected to match that. Okay, so that finishes that test data. Now we go to the initial deposit. And so I will add a new variable to this block, init deposit. And for greater than 2,500, I'm going to use a data function. So I will connect to TDM. Okay. And I will do a numeric, do a rand range, so just a random number between 2,501 and, I don't know, 10,000. I can validate that. Yep, looks good. I'll copy that. And then, oh, and that was less than, so let's edit that. I want, let's say, 1 through 2499. Yeah, looks good. Okay, 2,500, that's easy. It's just exactly that amount. So I'll just say 2,500. Greater than 2,500, I am going to put in that. So 2,501 through 10,000. All right, save that. Similar thing for the regular savings, it's just different amounts. So for test data, I'll use the same variable, initial deposit, greater than 20, less than 25 rather. So I'll do 1 through 24. 25 exactly would be 25. Greater than 25 would be 25 through, we'll go 1,000. All right, so that test data is done. The rest of this is pretty simple. One thing I'll show now is there's a shortcut. So if I've got this block ownership, it's got joint, individual, and unselected. So I can just go here to test data and I can say use or add default variables, and I could say use default value. And actually I'll do use exact default value so it doesn't parse out any spaces. I'll select all, these are the outputs. And what that'll do is it'll just take the attribute name, which should be the block name, and create that as a variable. And then for each output, it will assign the value as, it'll assign the attribute value as the test data variable value. So I'd expect ownership to have been created, and then for this output in the test data, it should be set to that. For this output in the test data, it should be set to that. And indeed, that is what I see here. So it's done that for me. It's kind of a shortcut. And again, that was add default variables, and I choose use exact default value. So it creates the variable ownership, and it is setting it for each output for me. So that's really when the value of your test data is going to match the labels of your edges, then you can use that shortcut. I don't have that luxury with account name because I need it to be an actual name. So I'll do a new variable called account name. And I will say valid. I'll do something a little tricky here. Do list of values. I'll do a random list of values. That's going to pull up my seed lists. And I'll say for first name, female Irish first, sure, 0. Maybe this. Okay. So that's going to give me just an account name. That's going to be someone's first name, the account type, and then the account, and then the text account. So it'll say Alex money market account or Jennifer savings account. And I'm using the account type variable that was set in a previous block as part of this test data expression. So I'll copy this because for invalid, I'm going to use that same variable and really steal that expression, but then add some special characters at the end. And so I can find that under string and then ran chars. And I'll say the min length is 3, the max length is 5, and then give it the list of characters to use. And I'll say some invalid special characters. It'll be something like that. So that will be invalid. Okay, looks good to me. Empty. It's just going to be nothing. Okay. Test data done. I'll save this as I go. Now we're going to layer in automation. I'm going to start without a config. So I'm going to start with a blank configuration. First thing I do is just remove all the kind of dummy object types that it puts in there, so it's completely blank. And now what I will do is, if you have existing automation scripts, it's a great place to start. So you could take a look at what they're doing and see the code that they're putting in, and then use that to help build out your automation config. So what I might do is, usually there are existing scripts laying around that you could take a look at, or if not, sometimes I'll just start writing them, but manually do like 2 or 3 just to get some of the information like import statements, just syntax, formatting. It's just usually easier to do that. So anyway, so the first thing that I'll start with would be the kind of the class header. So this is an existing test class. And so I will take the top here, everything down to the class declaration. This is for Java Selenium, obviously. It's compiled language, so there's some of that stuff to deal with like scripted languages, Python, etc. You don't have to deal with that, but it's no problem. So I'll say maybe a new object type headers and footers. And I'll put the class header here. So I'll just copy, I'll just paste that in. And then I might change some of this stuff here. So I'll say insert attribute, flowchart attribute, and then I'll choose the title. So it'll put the title of the model here. Okay, so this is really all I need for this. So I will add another action though for the class footer, which is just going to be a close brace, like that. While I'm here, I'll do a method header and a method footer. Method footer is easy. It's going to be a tab close brace. Method header, well, I want it to be something like this. So I'll do, I'll keep it simple. I'll do @test, and then I'll do public void, and then I'll maybe do the path name. Path name. All right, and do open close paren, open brace, and enter. And that should give me something like this. Okay. So far, so good. So I need to save this configuration file. So I'll save it to desktop as savings account, POM. And then I might change the layer name to Selenium, just so I can see it. And then for export here, I will go ahead and basically align those header and footer actions we just created. So I'll say path header. Well, I'll start with flow header. So this means when you do merge script, print this once at the top. And so I'll do the class header as the flow header. The flow footer will be the class footer, just a close brace. The path header would be my method header. And the path footer would be the method footer. So essentially what I'm saying is when I do a merge script, you're going to print this stuff once, the header at the top, footer at the bottom. Inside of that, for each path, you're going to print the method header once for each path, then all of the automation for the path, and then at the end of that, the method footer. So you could see how in my sample tests, I have a test method that contains all of this Selenium automation, and then that method ends. And so our model will describe the actual Selenium steps in the blocks, such that each path it builds will have collected snippets of code like this, but it will make sure that it is wrapped in my method header and footer steps. And that's what I'm configuring here. I'm saying use this action, which were the ones we just created, as the method header, use this action as the method footer. Same with class header, class footer. So we're just kind of setting up the shell that's required, more or less. Now we would basically start adding the automation for actually doing stuff on the pages. So usually I like to split up this in terms of the page object. So I'll have a login, I'll have a home page, and these are really just folders, and maybe new savings. Okay, and then now I will usually look at a test or just look at the POM and understand what I need to do. And so I know I need to go to this login page. I'm going to assert that the title equals digital bank. Make sure I'm where I think I should be. I'm going to then log in by entering username, password, click submit, and then I assert that I'm at the home page. Yeah, that all looks like the stuff I'll need to do for literally every test. So I won't need to do those things individually. So I'm just going to create an action that says login as valid user. And I'm just going to paste this. That's it. I'm not going to ever really do this without doing this. I'm not going to do this without then doing this and then doing this. So I'm just going to make it one snippet. I like making my life easy, not hard. Okay, what's the next thing I do? Well, I click on the savings menu and I click new savings menu option and I make sure I'm at the new savings page. Yep, that sounds like things I would always do together. So I'll put that at home page because that's technically a menu navigation step. So I'd say navigate to new savings and paste in the snippet. Okay. What next? Here's where I'm actually entering the form. This is where it gets a bit interesting. So I select the account type, I select the ownership type, the account name, the initial balance. If you're listening, which I hope you are, those should sound familiar because those are the things we actually modeled. But no reason why I can't just make this all one thing. So I'll say fill in the form. And I am stealing this right from an existing test. But what I need to do is parameterize the snippet so that depending on where I went to the model, I can populate this this collection of code differently, specifically the function parameters. So this would be account type. So what I just did there is I replaced the hard-coded value with a tilde delimited automation parameter. So this is now account type automation parameter. When I use this automation snippet, it's going to expect that I am mapping what account type is associated with, and I can map it to a test data variable, which, if you recall, we already created. And that's what we'll do when we use this snippet. This will be ownership. I can name these whatever I want because I will actually map them to what test data they correspond to. But I just kind of give them meaningful names that make sense for clarity. Initial balance. Okay, I'm done. That's it. That is what I would do there. And then let's see. Let's see. I want to find a. Okay, so here's a valid one. So I am asserting that I see a new account message. So on success, maybe I'll have a new object here. Actually, you know what? I'll just keep it here. Put it in this. So assert account created. And that will be this guy. And then we could also say assert account not created. And that could be this guy. Is assert false a thing? I don't know. Let's try it. It is. Cool. Let's do that. Assert false. Okay. And I got a new line there. Did I put a new line here? Yeah, I did now. All right, so we've built out the config more or less. Now we just need to add it into the model, and this is where we'll map it to test data. So log in. Go to his automation section. We'll hit add. We'll choose login. Notice that what's showing up on this dropdown is mapped or matches the way that we built out that config file just a second ago. So that was defining the organization that users would then see when they're going to align automation to their model. Okay, login as valid user. Yep, looks good. Hit OK. Save. Now that automation snippet's tied to this block. Open new savings. Okay. So really, I'm going to do this every time. So yeah, I will add in the automation here to navigate to new savings. and to fill in the form. I'm going to put it up here. And then I will tie it to test data. And this is the stuff that's changing depending on where I go in the model. So account type maps to the test data variable account type. Ownership maps to this test data variable. Account name maps to that. Initial balance maps to that. I made this easy for myself because I named these parameters close to what I named the test data variables, which we did first. So it was easy for me to know that account type, it maps to ACCT underscore type. Okay, I had that there, good. This will obviously result in different values based on the test data that was traversed in the subsequent blocks of this model. But there's nothing wrong with me putting that here because the order of my snippets still lines up with how I need my scripts to be outputted. So I don't have to put a line of Selenium for each of these blocks. It's just unnecessary. The data really is what's driving the difference between the paths that I'll get here. So anyway, now I'm going to add my assertions to the end blocks. Okay, so I'll go to automation here, and I'll say account created. Looks good. And then account not created. I'll go automation and account not created. This is a clone of him. So if I open this clone, I can see he already has that snippet added. I added it to this block, but because this block's a clone, he automatically is going to inherit everything that I do to this block. So I'll save here. And one thing I like to do is kind of a little trick. And under design, I go to grid edit. When I'm using clones, I will do, I will search for clone and I will replace that with C, which is just going to reduce the text, which makes it easier to read my block names. So now this is click submit C1 instead of click submit clone 1. And that replaces the text on all the block names that I cloned. So a little easier to read. Okay, I'll save. And yeah, I guess now we can start taking a look at what kind of automation this model's generating. I'll do all pairs. And let's see, so I'll store all of these. And I'm going to do a naming template. So let's do something a little clever here. Just call this template savings account. And if you recall, this path name is going to be what we actually set as the Java function or method name. So we have to do valid Java, which I believe does not allow dashes, but we can use underscores. So maybe I'll put the, let's see, maybe I will do, what is, I always forget the one that will collapse. So I want to remove spaces of account name. And then I want to remove spaces of account. Actually, I want account type, not name. Don't care about the name. Do ownership. And do another underscore. And maybe, yeah, that should be fine. See what that does. Yeah, that looks good. ACC type, okay. All right, so I just created a naming template, which means that now when I store these 19 paths, they'll have names like this: test 1 money market joint, test 2 money market individual. Okay, now if I generate automation, you see the fruits of our labor. So I'm generating a looks like a good script for each test. Some formatting I might want to clean up, so I might want to add a new line here. I want to make sure this is new lined, so I know that I need to add a new line to the end of my class header and to the end of my method footer. Class header, method footer, class header, method footer, class header, new line, method footer, new line. Save and close, and it's going to auto update my code. Looks better. I want another new line after method footer. I'm hitting this blue button in the bottom left, by the way, to edit my automation config. When I make an edit, it will then, when I save it, it will now re-render this produced automation, so I can kind of debug stuff that I need to fix. But this looks good. This is looking good. So let's see. Does this pass the test? I'm going to actually import this into my project here, and we'll see if it is valid. So I'll take that location. Ooh, I do want the file name to be well formed. So I'll do that in export. I'll say flowchart name. So what would this be? Flowchart name, okay, whatever. And then extension would be maybe tests.java. I don't know what's that going to produce for me. Okay, so that's not a valid Java class. So I'm going to change that. So I'll change the name to this. Just remove the spaces. Okay, save it. Go back to my Path Explorer, view my tests. They were already stored, so I'm just going to regenerate the automation for them. And, but this needs to map to that. So this file name has to match that. So we'll have to just make that consistent, no problem. Headers, footers, method header, class header. Okay, well that's why. So this will be basically that. All right, that should do it. What do we get? Debake new savings test, debake new savings test. Looks great. I'll paste in that folder. So I'm basically saying dump this exported file into my Eclipse project. So let's try that. Okay. I refresh this. Hey, it compiles. And it would run. Let's try it. So this file ARD just generated, which, by the way, in less than an hour, we just built a model, added all the test data, built an automation config, added all the automation, generated tests. Those tests are now running in front of you. Less than an hour. 19 automated tests.